YouTube! My name is Sarah and welcome to The Bookish Knitter, and welcome to my week in books. In this video today, I'm going to share with you all of the books that I finished over the last week. So basically, I'm just going to go over everything that I've read, give you guys my full thoughts on them, my ratings, all those good things. I do generally do daily reading vlogs. This week has not been the best. I got a little bit busy and I forgot, to be completely honest. It slipped my mind. But I do try and do them, so you generally know what I'm reading during the week. However, when I do those vlogs, I don't give my full reviews because I figure not everybody watches the vlogs. And then this way, if you want to know my full thoughts on a book, you don't have to scour through the vlogs to find which one I talked about such and such a book. They're all contained in these weekly videos at the end of the week. So this is for week number 24, which was June the 8th through the 14th. Guys, we are almost halfway through the year. Can you believe it? Unbelievable. I just can't. And I finished 5 books this week, you guys. I am very, very happy with that. That is the one great thing about reading books that are relatively short. You can get through a lot of them. And Speechify has become my new best friend. And I do want to do a video on that app by the end of the month. I've really wanted to give it a good go. I just got my next payment came out, so I've been using it now for a solid month. So I think now that it's going to be a good time for me to talk about it. And I'll be doing that more towards the end of the month because there are some likes and dislikes that I have with the app. But I'm going to go into more detail on that in a full video because it's not cheap. Let's put it that way. But I do think it's worth it. But we'll get into that in another video. So in this video, let's talk about what I've read this week. Getting completely off topic here. So anyway, the first book that I finished last week was Undercover Cowboy by Laura Scott. This was not necessarily the book that I picked for, okay, so I host a category romance book club every month. And every month, instead of picking a specific book, I pick an author and I let you guys pick the book by that author that you want to read. And I picked the author Laura Scott for the month of June. This is not the book I had planned on reading. I just happened to find this in the back of my car. I bought it last year before I went into hospital. I didn't clean out my car before I went into hospital, and Garrett and I were cleaning out the car, kind of. And I found this, and I was like, oh, hey, and it's always a bonus, a large print. So I decided to go ahead and pick it up. So this wasn't the Laura Scott I planned on reading, and I'm actually not going to read the one I planned on reading. I'm just not feeling any more love-inspired suspense right now, so I decided to, this is going to be my one and done for the Laura Scott. I love her work, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with her work. I know a lot of you, and I love hearing it, that when you're reading these books for the book club, that you're not just reading one book by this author. Sometimes you're reading multiple books by whatever the author is for that month. So I think that's fantastic. But anyway, this is love-inspired suspense novel number 337, and it was originally published in April of 2013. I gave this book 3 stars, and this is, of course, a Cupcake romance. If you have any questions on my spice ratings, I have that listed below. Please go ahead and check that out on what each of the star ratings mean. This is a love-inspired, meaning they're faith-based fiction, meaning this one, there is absolutely zero, there's romance in this book, but there's 0 adult content in this book. Let's put it that way. So this is the story of Kate and Logan. Sorry. My watch is reminding me it's time to take my pills. I will do that as soon as I'm done filming this. But anyway, so I gave this book 3 stars, and I didn't particularly love it. And I actually heard from one of you saying that you actually DNF'd this one, and I can see why. The main character, Kate, drove me crazy. Now, here's the weird thing about this book. I don't have this listed as part of a series because nowhere have I seen that this is part of a series. If you want fantastic fiction under this author, it lists this book as okay, so there's she does this SWAT team series, and they're labeled, I think, 1 through 6 or however many books are in that series. But then there's 4 books that are listed above that, but none of them are numbered. So it's weird. The Harlequin website now has republished these books. Those 4 books I'm talking about, this is the 3rd one, with new covers. I'll pop the new cover up here in case you're curious as to what the new cover for this book is. And it's being listed as book 2 or 3. But if you go on the author's website and look, it's not listed as part of a series. So it's very, very confusing. However, when I went and looked back on Fantastic Fiction, it was Fantastic Fiction, not Fiction Database, Fantastic Fiction, it shows that, when you look at the book that comes before this one, you meet these 2 characters in that previous book. So I think it's more companion novels. I don't know. It's very confusing. I didn't list it as part of the series because that's not how the author listed it. And that, in my opinion, is the be-all, end-all. If the author doesn't consider it to be part of a series, it's not a series. That's just my opinion. I think she wrote them more as companion novels. You can read this without reading the previous book, sort of, because there is some throwbacks to what happened, and it's almost like the reader should have known. But that is the author's fault, in my opinion, because she didn't list it as part of a series, and maybe it should have been. Do you know what I'm saying? So that was part of my beef with this book. Oh, I just thought I have my crafting down here to show you guys when I'm done talking about the books. And I just moved my foot and I thought I hit a cat. But no, it was my bag of knitting. I felt horrible for a second. So anyway, the other thing that really bugged me about this book was the main character, Kate. She seemed so immature in this book. I am sorry. She was so annoying and so immature. So the premise of this book is that she has kind of been like an informant for the FBI, working at this restaurant for this like mobster guy in Chicago. And Logan is an FBI agent. He's been undercover. And at the beginning of the book, she blows his cover when he saves her, because she does something and, you know, she's way too gullible. That's part of the thing, is that she's super, super gullible. So anyway, the two of them are now on the run from this mobster, and that's pretty much the whole premise of this book. It says Undercover Cowboys. There's horses on the cover. There are no horses in this book. The only thing is that he's from Texas, and his undercover persona was like this Tex Ryan, I think his name was, or something like that. That was the only cowboy-esque part of this book at all. I thought maybe they would head towards Texas, and then you'd have like, but no, it all took place in Illinois. Not really known for being, maybe Illinois has cowboys. I don't know that much about the U.S. states, to be honest. I know Texas and Montana and Colorado, they got cowboys. Arizona has cowboys. I think of the South with cowboys. Illinois is more, it's Chicago. It's north, right? Like, anyway, I'm rambling. So yeah, I didn't love this book particularly. You know, Kate wanted to be a police officer, but she would get all freaked out about shooting somebody. And I'm like, that might be part of your job. It's not, I'm sure nobody goes to like, oh, you know, but that may be a thing and you need to understand. It's the same as like, you know, you want to be a doctor, but you're like, but I don't want to ever have anybody can ever die. Well, but unfortunately, sometimes that happens. Sometimes that just is the way things go. So didn't love it, but I still read it. 3 stars. The next book that I read was Heartbreaker by Francine Pascal. Whoop, that's the wrong one. This one. This is Sweet Valley High book number 8. I actually gave this one 3.5 stars. And this is a Cupcake. And yes, even though it's a Sweet Valley book, I'm still rating these with spice ratings because sometimes they can, well, there might not be adult content. I try and think of it in the fact of the matter of it being a young adult reading it and how, you know what I mean? There's certain things implied and stuff like that, you know? So anyway, in this book, Jessica they're putting on a school play. And Jessica and Bill, this guy here, he is like the local surfer boy. And that's what he's known for. He's like won like awards and you know, competitions and things like that. And he's tried out for the school play. And he is playing lead opposite Jessica. And now she's like kind of like, he's had this thing for her way back in an earlier book. He asked her to like the Sadie Hawkins dance. Or no, she asked him to the Sadie Hawkins dance, excuse me. And he turned her down. And ever since then, she's kind of been like, no boy turns me down, kind of an idea, right? That's Jessica for you. And Bill's like, you know, but he's kind of had this crush on her. So she knows it. So now she's kind of making him like, it's almost like he's a puppet to her in this book, right? And so they're putting on this play, and then he starts teaching this other girl, Dee Dee, how to surf. And the two of them have a real connection. Like, when he talks to Jessica, he's tongue-tied and he doesn't know what to say. And, you know, she really makes him feel, like, stupid half the time because of the way she talks to him and the way she, you know what I mean? But with Dee Dee, he can, like, talk, like, and it's just, it's great. Like, there's no problems. Like, they get along super, super well. So anyway, you know, the whole play thing happens, and then Dee Dee's father, of course, happens to be like a Hollywood producer, because of course he is. And he comes to see the play, and he's like, oh, somebody in this is going to be a big star, but he won't say who. So Jessica, of course, thinks it's going to be her, because it's always Jessica. And then it turns out it's Bill, and then, you know, Jessica's like, now she's attached herself to him because he's going to be the next big Hollywood star, and blah, 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 blah. So anyway, it was fun. 3.5 stars. These are little soap operas. They're great. And, you know, I really do. I know that like Ollie from Criminology and Roy from Roy Reads Anything, and I think MJ from Reading This Life, they're kind of diving in and out of certain books, which is fine. I think that's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But I think to really appreciate Sweet Valley for what it is, you kind of sort of need to read them in order, because they are literally just one long soap opera. Absolutely. Because even at the end of every book, you'll get like, please tell me it says it in this book. Yeah, it says, Roger and Lila have a big surprise in store for them in Sweet Valley High number 9. So you know what I mean? Like, you're like, it's like, tune in tomorrow for another episode of Guiding Light or whatever. That's literally what the Sweet Valley High books are. The next book that I finished was The Daddy Makeover by RaeAnne Thayne. This was Harlequin Special Edition number 1857, and this was originally published in October of 2007. This is the first book in the Women of Brambleberry House series. I gave this book 4 stars. This was also a cupcake romance. This was a very, except for one book, this was a very like sweet romance week for me, which was kind of nice. So this book has been republished with a different cover and a different title. The new title, I think, is called The House on Cannon Beach, and I'll replace the old cover with the new one just for a second, just so you guys can see it, and then back to the old cover. And let's see how well editing Sarah did with all that. And yeah, I like this one. This is the story of Sage and Eben. Eben, I think, is E-B-A-N, Eben. So basically, she lives at Brambleberry House, and it's this house in a town called Cannon Beach in Oregon. And the older woman who owned the home passed away and left the home to Sage and this other woman who lived in the house named Annie. So the house is divided into like 3 apartments, okay? And Annie, the woman who passed away, was it Annie who passed away? Or was Annie the roommate? I'm drawing a blank. The lady who passed away, she would take in like strays, if you will, for lack of a better term. Like, you know, Sage was like living in this like little one-room boarding house in town when she first moved to town. She's a naturalist, so she actually puts on a summer camp for kids where she teaches them all about the ocean and all these other things in the area, like nature type stuff. And so this woman who owned the home, she's like, oh, come and, you know, so she rents this apartment to her and they become friends. And then the older lady passes away and she leaves the house to these 2 women who are living in the house. So that's the premise of the Women of Brambleberry House. And that's what the house is called. It's called Brambleberry House. So anyway, in this first book, Sage is out for a morning run at the very beginning of the book, and she runs into a little girl named... Her name is completely escaping me. Is it Claire? I want to say it's Claire, but I could be wrong. It might be Emma. It's one of those names. And it's probably neither of those names. Anyway, she runs into this little girl on the beach, and she's like, it's like 6:30 in the morning. This girl is out. It's early in the morning on the beach. It's chilly out. She's in her pajamas and slippers or flip-flops or whatever. So she takes her back to where she's living with her dad. So the father's in town. He's this mega millionaire. He runs a company that buys and sells hotels, kind of like a hotel real estate kind of mogul guy. And he's trying to buy this local hotel. So that's why him and his daughter are in town. But the daughter's kind of acting up. I mean, the wife passed away, or her mother passed away a few years earlier. So ever since then, she's kind of been running through nannies, and he's super busy. He doesn't have time for her. It's that kind of a situation. So Sage kind of like, she lets the little girl join this summer camp, and they start spending a lot of time together. And, you know, it's a really cute story. You know, not just about Sage and Eben and their relationship and their romance, but also about the dad learning more about his daughter and how to be a better dad, maybe, you know what I mean? It was a really sweet story and I liked it. I mean, I gave it 4 stars. The only reason it didn't really get a 4.5 stars because there were parts where I found the little girl to be a little bit bratty. And, you know, like Sage kept defending her while she's acting out because she lost her mom. Okay, absolutely. You know, I can totally see that. But there are some instances where maybe discipline, you know, and I'm not saying like, obviously nothing corporal, like let's not be real. But Pete, children need to be disciplined sometimes, you know, like, and told, like, she took off one night. She snuck out of the house and ran away, like, and she could have been killed. And nobody, like, it was just like, okay, don't do that again. No, that's not how these things work. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm not a parent, but that's just my thoughts. So anyway, The next book that I finished was Hunted Through Italy by Delaney Diamond. I did not write the author's name down. Thankfully, I remembered it. And this is Harlequin Romantic Suspense number 2330. This is a brand new release. It just came out this month in June of 2025. Guys, I gave this one 4.5 stars. This has been my favorite book so far this month. And this had 2 chili peppers, so this was my one slightly spicy book. So this is a standalone novel, and this is the story of Zaire and Buck. And this one was so good. So I read this because of participating in B over at Mama Needs to Read Romance's summer vacation thing that she's doing with her channel members. And so the last week we were all in Italy, so I read a book that took place in Italy. So in this one, our main character, Zaire, is an interpreter, and she's working for a company has brought people from the US to Italy to work as interpreters. So she speaks 5 languages, which is very, very cool. And she overhears one day a plot to blow up an embassy building. And so she goes, of course, to the local US embassy to tell them that this is a thing. Well, they arrest her because there's been 2 other embassy bombings and they think that she's in on it. You know, like maybe she's just So anyway, so Buck, who works for the CIA, like some weird organization within the CIA, he's brought in to bring her back to the US, basically, and protect her. Well, of course, that doesn't go to plan. Guys, there's this group of militants or whoever who are actually the ones behind these bombings who, stop them before they can get to the airport and fly out to the US. And then they're on the run through Italy, and it was so good. This was so fantastic. The romance was very quick. I mean, it's one of those insta lust. I don't call it insta love, insta lust type situations. When you're put in that kind of a situation, I think that might happen. I've never been put in that kind of situation. I've never had militants after me, thank God. But I could see how, high drama, high stakes, how all those things could, this very much read like an action movie, and it was fantastic. The body count in this thing was huge. I mean, and I'm not talking about the adult content. I'm talking literal people being killed. There were no qualms. There was one scene in the book where I think he takes down 4 people. This read like an action movie. It was so good. And if you're into that, if that's the kind of, to be completely honest, I could have seen my father really enjoying this book. It had murder. It had bombs going off. It had sex. It had all the things. It was really, really good. If you're a romantic suspense fan, give this one a try. This is the author's first Harlequin book, but she has written a ton. I was looking on her Fantastic Fiction page. She has written so many books. And I now want to delve into her backlist because this was so, so good. And I really, really hope she writes more for the romantic suspense line because this was just chef's kiss. It was fantastic. And the last book that I finished this week was Racing Hearts by Francine Pascal. The 9th book in the Sweet Valley High series. I gave this one 3 stars. And this was also a cupcake romance. So in this book, Roger, this is Roger, and this is Lila. And FYI, in case anyone is curious, that is Jennifer Connelly, the one from Labyrinth. That's how I know Jennifer Connelly. I think a lot of you might be I think she was in The Rocketeer and stuff like that. But that is actually Jennifer Connelly, modeling as Lila. She played, if you will, Lila in a lot of different Sweet Valley High covers. If you go and look up the Sweet Valley High book, it's Superstars, Lila's story, it is without a shadow of a doubt, that is Jennifer Connelly on the cover of that book. She also used to model for, was it Sweet Dreams books? I think so. Anyway, I delved into a rabbit hole of this week because I'm I swear to God, that's Jennifer Connelly. And it is. Anyway, that's the thing. So in this book, Roger's this poor kid at school. He keeps getting made fun of because of his clothes, because of course that's the kind of students we have at Sweet Valley High. And there's this big race that's going to be run amongst all these different schools in the area. And whoever wins the race wins a scholarship to Sweet Valley College or something like that. And so Roger last minute enters the race when he gets kind of bullied into it by Lila, and he ends up winning. Not the big race, but he wins the Sweet Valley High part of it, and then the top 3 people from each school go to the big race. So anyway, that's what happens. And then of course, as soon as he wins it, he becomes the darling of the school. And, but the problem is that he can't compete because he has to work. He works after school. No other 16-year-old never had an after-school job because clearly nobody in Sweet Valley does except for poor Roger. Because he's made to seem like some sort of like an outcast for having this after-school job. But he actually has it because he has to help his family pay the rent. Something happened with his dad. His mother is very ill and she can't work. So it's like on him, and he wants to be a doctor. So really winning the scholarship would be fantastic. But he's got this other obligation that he can't. If he doesn't show up to work, he loses his job. And then how is he supposed to pay rent, put food on the table, all those things? A lot of pressure for a poor 16-year-old boy. So anyway, all this stuff happens, and that's basically the premise of the story. It was a lot of fun. I liked it. Not as good as Heartbreaker, but, you know, these are all fun. And I will be starting today, actually, because today is Sunday. I'll be starting book 10 today, which is The Wrong Kind of Girl. And again, each book leads into the next book. They're just delightful. So yeah, so that is everything that I read last week, you guys. I had a really good reading week, so I'm very happy with that. And let's me show you my crafting. So the crafting, not so great. I'll show you my cross stitch first. I showed this to you guys on, I think it was Monday or Sunday. I think it was last Sunday when I did my vlog. I showed you that I picked back up my cross stitch, and I did not do very much. I literally just filled in this little area right here. Not terribly interesting. This takes a lot longer to work on. This is, whoops, I just hit my laptop. This is the Blue Jay. What is this called? The Vibrant Blue Jay is what I call it. So, I mean, you can clearly see these are his wings. This is going to be his beak. His head is facing this way. So I'm going to start working on that bit. It's going to be months before you guys see any major progress on this. But I am going to pick up a different cross stitch starting today for the rest of this week. And then I did pick up my sweater a little bit, but I didn't get as much knit on this one as I wanted to. But because these rows are longer and what have you. But I got a few rows done. So just to show you guys, where the marker is where I was, and that's how much more I got done. But I still haven't separated for the sleeves yet. This is the Flax by Tin Can Knits. I love this sweater pattern. But yeah, I've been working on that. But the big disappointment came with my socks. I did a major boo-boo and had to rip the entire sock out. Didn't want to, but I had no choice. So what happened is that on Thursday, I take these to work to knit on at lunchtime because I can listen to my my book on Speechify, and I can do some knitting while I eat my sandwich and have my drink and all that stuff and enjoy my quiet time at my desk. And I've been working on my cross stitch in the morning, like when I get up, and that's why I don't get as much done because it takes a little bit more time, and I don't have a ton of time in the morning sometimes. So I pulled this out of my bag to work on, and I reached in to grab the needles, and I grabbed them by this part. You guys might see where it's coming. I grabbed this and pulled. The needles came out, completely came out and separated themselves from the sock. The issue is that I was working on the heel, which is a lot of like back and forth, like it's a different way of knitting them. And I tried, guys. I tried for almost my entire lunch hour to put those stitches properly back on the needles, and I couldn't do it. And I got frustrated, and I ripped the whole thing out, and we started again. So I've got the cuff done. Now we're going to work on the leg. Luckily, these knit quickly. And I know my mistake now, never to grab from this, always grab by the needles themselves when you're pulling something out of a bag. So yeah, unfortunately, we had reverse knitting happening this week. That's what I call it, reverse knitting, when you have to back out and knit it again. So it's fine. It's just plain knitting. It's mindless. It's great for lunchtime. You know, at first I thought, oh, maybe I'll take my cross stitch for lunch, but it's just too much. Like to lay out everything on my desk, it's too much. So anyway, that's my crafting. I did order the fabric for, I think I showed you guys last week that I bought that strength pattern, the kind of tarot card thing. So I bought the fabric for that. It should be coming this week. And then if that's the case, I might start it next week. But I actually bought enough fabric to do 4 of them. So yeah, each piece of fabric I bought will do 2 pieces. So I bought 2 pieces of fabric. So I thought I'll buy the fabric and then I'll have it for when I want to stitch the next one, kind of. It's going to take me a while, but I like to like rotate my cross stitch projects because that way I don't get too bored just cross stitching on one thing. But anyway, I'm rambling at this point, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. And until my next one, everyone, take care and happy reading. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye, guys.